Hey YouTube, what's going on? This week I actually wanted to do something a little different. One of my favorite guitars, I have a lot of different guitars and I've been playing for 20 plus years and I've been through a lot. I've had ones that I've liked, ones that I've bought, and ones that I've sold. Ones that I've sold and that I wish I didn't sell, which is a whole nother, I think it's a whole nother installment. But one of my favorite guitars is the Fender Stratocaster. I really think that all the pieces combined and all the different things that you can do with it yourself, even if you're not really that handy. I don't think you necessarily need to be able to build a guitar from scratch to be able to put together a Fender Stratocaster. I think a lot of guitarists would agree that having a Stratocaster in your arsenal is a must, but I actually have two Stratocasters in my arsenal and I wanted to do a video explaining why. Now, both of my Strats have some things similar, but they also obviously have some things that are different. And I wanted to go over some of the things that are different with my guitar and some of the things that are also variable if you were to have two Stratocasters. My guitars do have some things that are similar, which are just particular things that I like, particularly the radius of the neck, the pickups in terms of the ones that I have in the neck and middle position, and that they both have a vibrato system. Now this Strat, like my other Strat, is a Partscaster. I put this together from parts that I bought on the internet. Actually, some of these parts I bought off of friends in person. But the body is a made in Japan ST62 Stratocaster body from the 90s. The Japanese Fender runs used to do 62 reissues, in 1962 Strat reissues, obviously very common. This is a made in Japan body. The specs on it are actually interesting. The neck pocket is a little wider than this neck wants to fit into, and this neck is more typical of an American or Mexican Fender. The Japanese neck pockets, for whatever reason, are a little bigger. It still works, it still screws in, but when you have these Partscasters, oftentimes it can be a little bit of a gamble as to whether the parts that you buy are going to fit in perfectly. Sometimes the pickguard screws don't line up exactly. Sometimes the bridges don't line up exactly. This is part of what goes into making a Partscaster. It's something that you just need to be aware of. So I bought the body. This neck actually has been with me for a very long time. This is a Warmoth neck. It's got some really interesting natural flaming on it. And it's also finished, right now it's finished in an amber finish that was done for me by Henry Delaco, my friend Henry Delaco at Gross Beat Guitars. I'll add a link to his page. He does really great luthier work, but he also does a lot of work for me, just tune-ups, fix-ups, and all these. He's actually, I have all these crazy ideas with guitars. He's able to entertain me and make them into realities. But this neck was recently refinished. You'll see that it has a Fender logo on it, but this is just a water slide decal that I put on. I like to have the Fender logo on there. It's just a personal preference. More specifics about this guitar. This has Sir pickups in it. These are Sir. The neck and middle are a V60 LP, which is like a vintage 60 style single coil. And the bridge humbucker is a Pete Thorn signature thornbucker, which I really like. It's sort of like a PAF style. I think it balances really well with this set. I don't find that there's any real discrepancy between the tones. It's got a 5-way selector, and something interesting about this guitar that I wanted to do, when you have a humbucker in the bridge, oftentimes you can have a split coil or a tap coil. Those are two different things. I have mine set up that it splits these into series and parallel wiring, meaning that when it's in series, both of these coils are working together in series, like one after another, so it increases the output and increases the sound. When you split it into parallel mode, it puts these pickups into two. It's almost like what happens when you pick these together. Now, when you move to the position 2 on a Stratocaster, now you're in between these two pickups, for instance. These two pickups' outputs are not summed. They are combined in a parallel fashion that actually cancels out some frequencies and keeps the sound and the output level relatively the same, gives you that sort of characteristic Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Mayer kind of quack tone. That's similar to what happens here. Instead of cutting the coil, I'm able to go from series to parallel, and the parallel bridge is a really interesting sound. This is something I actually heard that Pete Thorn likes to do, and I decided to put on my guitar with this pickup. I push it down and it goes into parallel mode, and when I push it again, it goes back into series mode. I actually don't find myself using this quite as much as I thought I would, but it is nice to have. This guitar has a Japanese Goto bridge that works on 2 points. A classic Stratocaster bridge back in the day had 6 screws that go in. It's called a 6-point tremolo. This is a 2-point or a pivot tremolo. I think the 2 points actually lets it balance a little bit better and lets it float a little more even, and you can get that flutter, almost like a Bigsby. I can still get that flutter and I still have the bridge floated. This is also something that you can look up. I'll link some videos below about how to set up a floating tremolo with both a 2-point trem and a 6-point trem. There are different techniques and there are ways that it's all possible. Combined with this 2-point trem, I also have a roller nut. This is something that they used to make back in the day. The only reason that I have this on here is that when I bought this neck secondhand, it was already routed for this. It's called an LSR nut. It's made by Fender. It was already routed for this. It actually has 2 ball bearings for each string. The strings sit on those ball bearings and it helps it from binding. I'm not really sure. I've never been able to compare this exact guitar with another nut, so I couldn't tell you. But it works for me. And I combine that as well with locking tuners. These tuners are made by Goto as well. They're a vintage look, but they have the lock on them. I wanted that. I went for that. I searched for them. I can put the link in the description as well. I really wanted this guitar to be as multi-purpose as possible. I think that combined with the Stratocaster single coils, the humbucker in the bridge, the vibrato system, and the ease of playability of a Fender, it really makes this an all-around grab-and-go guitar for situations where you might just need to bring one guitar to a gig. This was really what I wanted to do. I love dual humbucker guitars. I love Stratocasters that have just 3 single coil pickups. I think that they sound great. But when you're on a gig where you can't change between guitars and maybe you can't bring the guitars because you're going on the subway or you're catching a ride with someone and you don't want to bring a bunch of guitars, I feel like for me, it has been really amazing having one guitar that can cover a lot of ground. And that was the idea behind putting this one together. And this is my other Strat. I really love the classic Strat vibe. I love the Stratocaster as an instrument, so I feel like I can warrant having 2, to have one that's sort of like a hot rod, versatile guitar, and this one's more of just the classic Stratocaster realm. Now, there are a lot of things that are similar on that guitar and this guitar, but there also are a lot of things that are different. Mainly the pickups on this are actually 50s style pickups, although the guitar is certainly 60s visually, 60s inspired, like a 62 to like 64. The pickups on this guitar are made by a gentleman named Peter Florence, who unfortunately is no longer with us. I really love his pickups. I have this set in here. This is a 1956 Sweet set, which I think are a little bit hotter. This guitar has more of the classic bridge. Now this has a 6-point tremolo. This is actually a Callahan tremolo, which is an aftermarket bridge. It's not a Fender bridge. They engineered it a little differently. It's a little more smooth. It's something to do with the angle on the bottom, the way that it rides against the body. It doesn't get stuck up. The action is way smoother and it goes right back. This one has a 5-way switch the same way, but none of the push-pull or anything like that. This is just classic 5-way, classic single coil. Nothing's hum canceling. It hums. 60 cycle hum is definitely something that bothers me. I don't like it, but there's not much that you can do to get around it. You can shield the inside of your guitar and you can shield the pick guard, or you can get noise canceling pickups, but I personally don't think that they sound as good. And you just sort of have to deal with it. It's the nature of the beast. This is another Partscaster, so the parts are all from different places. This body is from a 2001 Highway 1 Fender Strat. It's like a thin skin nitrocellulose finish, so it's got some nice wear on it already. It's, it looks a little older. I think I've already put some dings on it. I've only played a handful of shows with it. So again, this guitar has a Callahan bridge. I like to angle my tremolo claw. There are all kinds of videos that show you how to set up tremolos. I recommend just taking your time and setting it up the best you can, or taking it to a tech if you don't feel comfortable working on your own guitar. Now this guitar having more of the standard appointments, meaning like the vintage correct appointments, I just have regular tuners on this guitar, just regular old Fender vintage style tuners. Just a normal string tree, again a 12-inch radius, so it's a little flatter. One other thing that's important to note, on both of my Stratocasters, I have this tone control is wired for bridge tone. Now you'll see a lot of guys doing this. When Fender sends Stratocasters out of the factory, they do master volume, neck tone, middle tone. I personally don't see the reason to have a dedicated tone control for both of these pickups. This is the pickup that I think needs the tone control the most. What I'm able to do is back off just a little bit. It takes some of that high-end sheen, or some people call it like ice pick highs, off of the bridge pickup and makes it blend a lot better with the neck. Another thing that you might find is that the neck pickup will be a little too woolly or a little too dark. You can set your guitar on your neck pickup, bring up the high end on some of your pedals or your amp to make the neck pickup a little less woolly. And then when you go to the bridge, you can compensate the highness on the bridge by rolling the tone off a little bit. It's something that I do all the time. You'll see a lot of players doing it all the time. And I think it's a really great mod that you can do on these Strats. Now, when I said before, I would take that green guitar to most gigs because of the versatility of the different humbuckers, but that doesn't mean that I won't take this guitar on a gig where I need a versatile instrument. I still think the Stratocaster, as is, the classic style, is incredibly versatile for the tones that you can get. I plan on doing another video that highlights all of my guitars. I have guitars that have 2 humbuckers. I have guitars with P90s, single coils, a Telecaster. But I wanted to do a video just to show you, with just the Stratocaster itself, the different kinds of Strats that you can have, I think can warrant having 2 in your collection and in your arsenal when you go to a gig or a show or a studio session. If you enjoy guitar-related content, I please encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you're a new subscriber, please ring the bell so that you'll be notified when I post a new video. Everyone stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.